next speaker is Julianne, or Jules Sohn, who's come down from LA. Julianne served for 5 years as a public affairs officer in the U.S. Marine Corps and the Marine Reserve, and she left the Marine Corps in 2003, and 3 years later joined the Call to Duty tour, which is a national speaking tour that sought to reignite debate about the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Julianne is also an honor graduate for her class from the Los Angeles Police Academy, and that was in February 2006, and currently serves as a police officer in LAPD's Media Relations section. Join me please in welcoming Jules Sohn.
We have to do the height thing again, sorry. Down, so we can't go any further. Thank you all for being here. I really am honored to be a part of this great panel. And Bridget already asked how many people are veterans in the audience, and I always like to kind of get a sense of how many people know someone in the military personally. Wow, that's a lot. Now, how many people have dated or are spouses of somebody in the military? I'm just curious, since we're here right by Miramar. Okay. Thank you for your sacrifice, actually. My story kind of touches upon that a little bit as well. As Dr. Porter said, I work for the LAPD now, but I served 5 years on active duty with the Marine Corps as a Marine Corps public affairs officer. Never had the honor of serving at Miramar, but as I was driving in today, I saw some Marines running around the base, and it just kind of brought back some memories. Some good, some bad, you know, but because being 5 feet tall and carrying all that gear, honestly, you know, maybe that's why I'm short. But I actually graduated from UCLA in 1999, and I made a decision to join the Marine Corps, partly because my parents are immigrants from Korea, and I had so many opportunities, you know, because I grew up where I did, and that my parents made the sacrifice to come over here, you know, giving up like a lot of what they knew to be in the United States. And so for me, the Marine Corps wasn't my first choice, actually. I admit it. I was in Army ROTC at UCLA, and then I like to tell people I saw the light and joined the Marine Corps. But that's, you know, an aside. But I actually knew I was gay going into the Marine Corps. So this is back in 1999, and I actually did my research. I figured, you know, I could be a good Marine officer and still live under this policy. You know, just, it seems simple, right? Don't ask, don't tell. Don't say anything, but reality quickly sunk in. Because I like to ask people, you know, those with families, those in relationships, imagine spending one day or 1 week never talking about your loved ones to the people that you're around almost 24/7. Can you imagine what that was like? And that's what I found myself in that situation. I was in Okinawa. I was a second lieutenant in a foreign country, and I remember hanging out with my friends, and they're all officers as well. They're junior officers, like lieutenants and captains at the time, and we're sitting around talking about what we were doing, you know, what we're planning to do. And for me, whenever my turn came up, I was just, you know, very boring. I became the boring one because I never really told them what I was going through, or the fact that I had a girlfriend at the time, which, by the way, did not last, because it becomes very hard to live a dual life when you're overseas and you can't talk about your partner can't come with you, you know. And so I found myself realizing I needed to tell somebody, because if I didn't tell somebody, I was gonna go crazy. And so I started to talk to some of my friends and try to get their politics, you know, see where they kind of were on the spectrum. And I came out to one of my friends, and I was waiting for something bad to happen, and he didn't care. He was like, "You're still my friend, you're a Marine officer, you do a good job, and you take care of the Marines." And I found that through the course of my time on active duty, I came out to people individually, they're all mostly officers, and they really didn't care. And that's the younger generation. They didn't care as long as you did your job and took care of your Marines. So I like to fast forward to a moment when I was getting orders to go to Parris Island, South Carolina, which is one of the boot camps. There's one in San Diego. That's where all the male Marines or recruits who are like west of the Mississippi go there. and all the women and the male Marines who were recruits east of the Mississippi go to Parris Island. And so I was getting orders to go there, and I remember having people warn me, oh my gosh, be careful of 4th Battalion. 4th Battalion is where all the women are trained, and apparently there was a reputation that there were a lot of gay women Marines there. And my research that I know Bridget probably knows very well was back in the early 80s, Parris Island was ground zero for one of the many witch hunts that occurred, where over hundreds of female Marines, based on speculation, based on accusations, nothing necessarily solid evidence, were kicked out of the Marine Corps, forced out of the Marine Corps. So there I was in 2001, going to Parris Island, which still had that kind of reputation. And I went there and I was back in the closet because I was afraid. But I soon found the same thing happened. I could be out to some people and they didn't care. But needless to say, there was one moment where I was working in my office as a public affairs officer, and my friend, who I wasn't out to yet, he was the legal officer for my unit, came in, and he closes a door, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Is my Marine, is somebody in trouble? And he was like, nobody's in trouble, but I just wanted to know. And I can't really ask you what I want to ask you, and you can't really tell me anyway, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. And I told him, you don't have to ask, and we won't violate the policy, but I'm gonna tell you you're half right, because at that point I was bisexual. That's how I viewed it, and he basically wanted to protect me as a friend, and he did. And so that last tour of duty on active duty in 2003, I made a decision to leave active duty because it was just so stressful. It was so stressful to just kind of live a lie. And so I decided to leave active duty, and I went into what's called the IRR, or Individual Ready Reserve Status, which is where I guess Jason was pulled back into active duty, which actually did happen to me. In 2004, I got orders to go back to active duty to serve in Iraq. And at the time, I had a partner, and this is why I always ask people who've dated somebody in the military, I want to acknowledge that there is sacrifice on that end. But imagine being a partner of someone who is gay, who has to serve under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, and you yourself have to go in the closet for them. And so she agreed to do that for me, which was kind of like very, I definitely respect her. I mean, she's my ex, but she definitely did a lot for me. So I decided to go to Iraq, despite a lot of people saying, hey, you can pull the gay card and you don't have to go. But for me, being a Marine officer was about serving. And so that's why I went, which is why I'm here today, actually, because I found myself, again, faced with this strange policy where a lot of people that I came across who were younger, my personal friends, they found this archaic and ridiculous. How can you separate people who are good people, who contribute to the unit, and for just the fact of who they love? And I actually was talking to one of my friends today who's on active duty in the Marine Corps, and he's constantly trying to do his thing, do whatever he can to help change the policy in his way. And it just kind of, for me, I think in terms of psychology, I was realizing this is kind of like in the context of psychology. I wanted to ask you guys to just think about the concept of PTSD based upon serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I think a lot of people don't really think about that, because when you have to hide, when you have to lie, when you have to put, just a different face on who you are as a person, how does that impact you? I work with women in a group called Service Women's Action Network, where we work with women, mostly straight women, but also gay women, who are fighting PTSD claims. And the one question that we will not ever know, I don't think, is how many people are impacted by this policy who do have PTSD but can't report it. And I kind of want you to keep that in mind. And this is why I speak out, because there are actually very few women, recent veterans, who speak about their experiences. And I think part of it is because of that, is because of how isolating it is to be under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So that's something that I would keep in mind, because my PTSD screening after I came back from Iraq was 10 minutes long. And that's pretty shocking. because a lot of people don't know how to deal with women veterans. Recently, actually today, the new data for the number of discharges in 2009 came out, and there were about, what was it, 443 were kicked out in 2009. I was kicked out in 2008, and the data in 2008 showed that about 33% of the discharges were women, and women only make up 20%, if that, of the 15% of the overall military. So women are actually discriminated against, and so there's a lot that needs to be done. And I really appreciate you all sitting here and listening to my story. Thank you.